Generally, when people think of impossible battles in Total War, they're looking at battles that have something like three stacks attacking, a garrison in the middle of nowhere that has like five guys or something like that. And it's just kind of a hopeless situation of looking at, how is this tiny garrison going to defeat these like overwhelming odds? And something that happened to me when playing this most recent Rome 2 campaign is I came into a battle that I found to be exceptionally interesting to me, despite how bad this game's reputation tends to be at times, especially among the historical community, I feel. Um, Now, I need to kind of explain the context of this because when you look at this balance of power bar here, this looks like a very easy winnable battle, and when we get into the actual game here, I think it's going to be pretty evident early on, like what the actual challenges of this battle are. Now, something I want to explore in terms of this actual battle, in terms of its context, is most people don't think very highly of the naval battles in this series, whether you're looking at Empire or Shogun 2 or any of the games in this series. It's a very small community of people who actually play these battles and actually attempt to do any kind of exceptional gameplay with them, I would say. And the Rome 2 developers, in an attempt to kind of fix what they perceive as design oversights, shall we say, made it so that whenever you attack an army in transports, which is what our opposition is here, with a fleet, the auto-resolve heavily favors the combat ships. And this is generally due to a number of factors, specifically when fighting these types of armies with a traditional Greek or Roman fleet or Carthaginian fleet that have ships that are capable of ramming or that have artillery mounted on them. You are able to easily destroy the enemy transports. We have a barbarian navy, however, and what's notable about barbarian navies is they are incapable of ramming ships, and so this means that what is normally available to you to make a victory like this even more crushing than the auto resolve would suggest is not available to you. And basically what we'll find is there's only really one thing that can make this battle work, and the skill of actually using it is exceptionally interesting to me. Now, this was my fourth attempt at this battle when we actually get to it, so we'll be watching a replay of it. And yeah, I'm gonna explain in the actual battle like what's kind of going on here. Now, just to kind of fully understand the situation in terms of force balance, we've got a fleet of, I believe it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 archer ships, one of which is a medium ship, which the general is on, and we also have 6 of these, spearman ships. These have 80 men apiece, and they are filled with tribesmen, which are a tier 0 crappy spearman unit with okay-ish armor, but nothing really to write home about, and particularly poor melee attack. I am playing with a gameplay mod that did affect this battle, but only very slightly, as we'll see, in that it borrows the seasickness mechanic from Attila, which lowers unit stats by 20% for units on transports to kind of simulate, how these units are supposed to be less combat effective fighting at sea than actual dedicated Marines. But I found that this didn't actually make that big of a difference in the battle. And something else that's really curious about this is I was kind of experimenting at the same time, trying to understand this combat. And so what I ended up doing is I lowered the difficulty from very hard to normal for the battle, because I think it was affecting a critical part of the battle itself, or at the very least, it was preventing me from understanding something that was happening. So let's go ahead and get into the battle. Okay, so here we are in the battle itself, and how I've deployed is I've sent the 4 spears initially off into this corner here. My tactic with this going into it was I'm just going to skirmish with my bow ships do enough damage that maybe I can get out of this, you know, having profited somewhat. But I didn't think this was a winnable battle. And the reason for this is the way that missile ships like this interact with transports is that every ship in this game has what's called an ignition threshold, according to the files, which is, as you might expect, the amount of fire damage it needs to take before it catches fire. So the way that these missile ships interact with these transports is they shoot fire arrows at them, and then there is a threshold for what they call fire damage. And once the fire damage of a transport or any ship reaches 100%, the ship begins to burn out, and the actual health of the ship deteriorates very quickly. Now, the problem with this is the ship is still capable of moving and fighting during this time. Projectile units, even though the ship is on fire, will continue shooting at you. And so there's this delicate balancing act that's going on where you need to simultaneously be lighting these ships on fire, which costs, you know, ammunition, which you have a limited amount of. I think the standard amount of volleys per ship here is about 15. And it takes about 4 volleys. It actually takes about 5 or 6 volleys usually to light one of these transport ships on fire. Now, the reason I turned the battle difficulty down is because I wanted to analyze specifically the fire damage threshold interacting with the actual, like, missile ships. So when the ships like start to catch fire and stuff on very hard battle difficulty, you can't actually see how on fire the ship is, which causes a major problem in that you don't know at what point you're starting to overkill the ship, because the thing is, once the ship reaches 100% fire damage, you don't need to shoot at it anymore. The problem, however, is that these ships can they continue to like shooting even after the ship is already at 100% fire damage. And as we can see here, this tribespeople ship is already catching fire, and this is a priority target because these projectile ships are a big issue. Now, another problem with barbarian fleets is, for some reason, the developers decided that the barbarian ships are going to be as slow as transports, which is not a problem for regular navies, because every non-barbarian faction uses the same model for this, which is, faster, triremes and quadriremes and all that jazz. So, something that's really difficult to tell when you're playing on very hard is that a ship that is slightly on fire, like this one, is difficult to tell apart from a ship that is completely on fire. Like, would you be able to tell at a glance the difference between a ship, like, these ships? I couldn't. I got to a point where I was like, because this ship only has 2 fires on it, but it's completely on fire. And so a big part of the difficulty of actually managing this fight was making sure that we weren't overshooting on ammunition as well. So in addition to moving these incredibly slow ships, you also have to manage ammunition. And then over here, I think this might have been something I could improve upon, like in hindsight. I tried to send these over here to potentially board and attack these projectile ships, but the issue is with these tribesmen is their attack stats are just too low. They suffer from a big problem that a lot of spearmen have in Rome too, which is that they're just incapable of killing things in melee that aren't cavalry a lot of the time. And moreover, there's just too heavy of a concentration of projectile ships over here. What could have been done instead is using these to distract the fleet instead of sending them in, and that might have swung the battle in a different way. Anyway, so as you can see, we're continuing to kite these ships. The one thing that makes this possible is these ships get an ability called Row Hard. And all it does is increase the speed for 10 strokes of the oars. And it's not that much, because these ships are slow in the first place. I don't know what the actual boost to speed is, but it's only just barely enough for them to keep out of range of enemy ships. and it's so little, so minor of a boost that ships that have projectiles that are, you know, pursuing are still able to kind of catch up to them. Now, here we start to, you know, see the big problem here. Like this this ship is attempting to board, and then they get caught by like this desert levy instead. And then I try to get in here with like a different, you know, tribesman ship, and the problem is these just get chewed up too quickly to do anything. And the ship AI is also kind of like a little bit buggy as well. It's not the best that it could be, honestly. This is a whole weird situation as well, where this ship, like, I think attempted to board this one, and then it just didn't want to at the end. And then I'm over here microing the part of my fleet that actually matters, because what I'd found after multiple attempts is these ships just can't do fucking anything. It feels like they're not that much better than the archers in melee, and more to the point, they can't kill, you know, a ship or multiple ships before actually appearing. So essentially what's going on with these is and this is kind of an issue that melee units in Total War have in general, is most of the time the only way that melee infantry have to interact with other units in Total War is by stat checking them. And yeah, as you can see, the ship gets like double ported. It's just a massacre. It's really bad. And it did, however, create an interesting situation where the enemy fleet kind of got themselves into a little bit of a clusterfuck positionally to deal with these. So, you know, they still had some tactical value, but I do generally wish that these had been, you know, more archer ships. Now, essentially, what's interesting about this still is, you know, the auto-resolve thinks that, like, you know, this is a hopeless battle for the transport ships, right? Like, this should be unwinnable, basically. It should be a very clean victory, if nothing else. Like, but the fact of the matter is, we're attempting to kill 20 ships with only 8 missile ships. Actually, only 7, I think. And then the issue you run into is you run out of ammunition. Now, I haven't played as much of Attila's naval battles because, you know, if you really want to get into the deep lore of the Total War iceberg or whatever, the battles in Attila, I don't almost nothing about them. I know they're similar to this, but a major thing that I do know about the battles in Attila is the ships in that can refill their ammunition. And I think, like a lot of things in Attila, that was done as a kind of response to, you know, the battles in this game. So, anyway, as the battle progresses here, something that's really weird is I don't think that the AI was out of ammunition here, unless they really did expend all 7 or 8 of their javelins on these transport ships, or sorry, that these assault ships attempted to do. But, you know, what I was kind of saying earlier with the assault ships, you know, if you're going to use those kinds of ships at all, it seems like what you need to do is make sure that you only are using it with like elite swords and stuff like that, because otherwise they're not even going to be able to board, you know, these crappy like missile ships that have, you know, archers on them. Like they'll just lose. Now, something I suspect was happening with the difficulty in this, and I can't actually confirm this because you can't tell because the UI turns off when you play on very hard battle difficulty, but I think that the threshold for ships catching fire is actually a lot higher on the higher battle difficulties. Like that's a way that like the AI kind of cheats to make it harder, and so that makes a bad situation worse. Because you're already struggling with ammunition issues, and at the end of the day what this is coming down to is just the ability of your archer ships to kind of set these on fire. Now, curiously, some barbarian navies don't get fire arrow ships. Some barbarian navies only get slingers, so they don't get any archers, and they don't get access to fire arrows, which is like kind of the primary way that you would want to use these units to like kill others. And so in those situations against a big transport fleet, I guess you're basically fucked because you have no way of doing this. And something that's also interesting in regards to campaign interactions, because the primary reason you would want to learn these battles, I think, is because in the campaign, naval battles can be a really good way. Oh, and this is something I want to highlight real quick too. Sometimes when the ships catch fire, they just stop taking damage, even though they're fully on fire. I don't know if this is a bug or what's going on here, but you know, that happens sometimes too. And then it'll resume again, and you know, again, with the UI off, this makes it almost impossible to tell, like, is the ship actually burning out? Like here's a ship that's like that was sort of on fire, and I don't know if you need to just count the number of fires or like what is going on with this, right? Now, as we start to near, you know, the conclusion of this battle, a lot of my ships are starting to run out of ammo. So this is getting to be a very like tense situation. We can't see in the actual UI because it's a replay and not in the actual battle itself. Yeah, and I'll be the first person to admit that I'm not the best at Total War Micro. What I've always enjoyed about Total War is that it's much more than other RTS games about positioning rather than like fast reflexes and stuff. It's actually one reason I don't particularly care for the Warhammer games. Is a lot of that game feels like it's about like selecting your commander and casting spells and doing that kind of thing, like it's Warcraft 3 or something. And I like Warcraft 3, but it's not why I play Total War. I play these games because I like the idea of, you know, good positioning, winning the day, and good tactics rather than you know, the ability to you know, execute a lot of commands really quickly. So the enemy fleet is reorganizing itself at this point in time, so there's kind of a little bit of a lull in the battle at this point. And I believe these two ships at the fringe here and these two ships are mostly out of ammo at this point. I think these three ships are primarily who hold my ammo still, particularly this ship here at the edge, because this ship hasn't been shooting as much. And it really is unfortunate to me that even if you hit the halt button, you turn off fire at will, it's like the AI is programmed to continue shooting like 2 or 3 volleys even after you've told the ship to like stop shooting entirely. And they will eventually stop shooting, I've noticed. They will eventually, you know, be like, okay, I'm not firing at will anymore, like, you know, I'm going to stop shooting now. But that quirk of the AI behavior of the ships caused a lot of issues here. Now, what's curious about Rome 2 is I think it's the first game. I'd have to double check this, but I don't think Shogun 2 had ammunition for its ships. I think the ships in Shogun 2 had infinite ammunition, and so Rome 2 is kind of the first, and I think the only game with actual naval battles where you can run out of ammunition. And obviously in Attila there's like a refill button. In the games that came before it, your ships just had infinite ammo. And I think that the reasoning for that was pretty sound, which was, at least for like the you know, Empire Total War, like, you know, ship of the line type combat with cannons and stuff, the ships take so long to die from getting shot by cannonballs that it makes sense to have infinite ammo, so that it just comes down to like, okay, who had the better, like, you know, positioning and tactics and such. And it was around this point in the battle, you know, I was thinking to myself that this is where I started withdrawing, I think, because that was the intention of this action in the first place. I actually didn't think that I could win this battle, and I didn't think that this was something that I could like even come close to doing as well as I did, because after repeated attempts on the harder battle difficulty, I found that I was only able to sink a couple of ships before things just like went south. It really is just sorry, I have to kind of laugh because it really is so funny to me that like these are supposed to be like, you know, raider ships, right? And these are the lighter ships. These are, you know, missile raiders. They're you know, they've got, you know, a lot of oars and They're lighter than a transport. They have fewer men on them, so they're less heavy than transports as well. And yet we have what looks like, you know, the slowest car chase in like human history going on here, with these melee ships desperately trying to catch up to these transport or to these missile raiders. And it's just the most like it's just like, you know, like watching snails chase each other, which is just like really funny to me. And you know, as I played this, I kind of thought to myself that a lot of people talk about how a little micro trick there is, if you want your ships to focus fire, you can select them very quickly, like right click, and then move your ships again, and they'll actually remember which ship you told them to shoot at, which is really cool. I was actually surprised by that quirk in the AI behavior, that like it remembered that basically. And anyway, I often see people talk a lot about how the naval battles in these games are really boring, they're really slow, they're not interesting, like they're very simplistic, like these sorts of things. And I found it really interesting because even with all of the issues I've described, and even with the balance issues and design oversights and all these things that would potentially like prevent someone from enjoying it, I really enjoyed this, actually. I thought this was a really fun battle to play. And I think it just goes to show that, like, you know, just because other people say something about something doesn't mean you should necessarily like listen to it. Because yeah, I actually did think this was a remarkably entertaining battle to play. And I don't know what it's been like to watch it, obviously, because it is a total war battle against the AI after all, but this kind of a desperate situation here with this missile raider going after this transport. It's like desperately trying to catch the other missile raider, but then this one's at the back of the map. This is the only one with ammo anymore. He's like desperately trying to like get to him. And as we kind of get to the close here, you know, I'm realizing like what I'm gonna have to do to win this battle is I'm gonna have to start boarding with archers. And rather pathetically, I noticed at this point in time that the archer ships actually have the same attack stat as the spearmen in the assault ships. So there really is just not really a point in recruiting those. Now, it's at this point in the battle I realized that there was a major tactical oversight that I had incurred, which is the enemy general, which are a bunch of camo cataphracts with heavy armor, no shields, thankfully, but nevertheless, is still alive. I was so focused on just killing the ships that were remaining that I didn't think about like prioritizing certain ships over other ones. And like I said, I'm not the best at these battles. I think that this one, just based on what's happening here, is completely winnable, even if I didn't necessarily have the skill to execute it. And the rest of the battle here is kind of a foregone conclusion. So we run into this situation where there's basically nothing left to do except board. We're completely out of ammo, and I'll just kind of fast forward this part because it's not nearly as interesting as the rest of the battle, I think. But yeah, we board these slingers, they die, and then we got to kill this desert levy, which is just like, you know, crappy tier 0 sword infantry, and we just go ahead and board those two. And then here's potentially another mistake I made, which is trying to board these camel cataphracts using only 1 or 2 ships at a time, basically like flubbing the positioning as well, because my hope was maybe if I surrounded them it would break their morale because they're like the last ship that's alive, and like all this other stuff. And at first it almost looks like I'm winning, almost, but yeah. And then my general gets in here and she gets murked pretty quickly here, just, you know, because when the ships are boarding, it's kind of like, you know, you have this issue where it's kind of like jumping onto the wall using like a ladder. Your units are surrounded when they attempt to board. It's hard for them to actually like get footing, and that on top of these being like archers as well just makes the situation worse. And then I kind of commit the same sin here. again, where I don't make sure that the positioning is great. But this is my fourth attempt at the battle. I'm getting a little frustrated at this point, and ultimately, what was the point of even fighting this when the game already said that I was gonna win, right? and yeah, those archers get murked immediately, and yeah, at this point, I should have stuck to my original plan. I should have run, but I was just so desperate to like win this battle after such a struggle, basically, that I just went for it anyway. But anyway, I don't know. I haven't made a video in a long time, and I kind of wanted to maybe change that just as I'm playing games I enjoy again and reaching kind of a different stage in my life as a person. I started my channel making videos that were about, obscure mechanics and things like that in games that people might be curious about. And that's actually kind of what led me to doing these barbarian naval battles in Rome 2 in the first place. Is when you Google online, how do I even make these work? Nobody really seems to have an answer. The people just kind of say, well, these are bad, these are terrible, you shouldn't use them. And I think what I found here today is that if I'd had a full stack of 20 of these fire arrow archers, I think this absolutely would have been a complete stomp, just by virtue of having the fire arrows. I don't know. I think that's just really interesting to think about. And this was an immensely fun battle to play as well. Just, seeing how close it was with the arrows and the missile ships kind of running for their lives, kiting at the slowest pace possible, working within the limitations of what you have available and just attempting to win battles, which is kind of the core, I think, of Total War, and what makes it fun and interesting is winning these kinds of hopeless situations. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I can't commit to any kind of posting schedule just because I'm not that kind of person, but I hope you enjoyed it, those who did watch, and I'll see you around.